So we had a bit of an interesting day today after that Pokemon Presents happened, and not necessarily from just the information in that Presents, but also what it related to and what it seemed to validate for a 4chan post that was posted days and days ago. And it turns out they were basically 100% correct about some very fine details that were shown in that Presents. And well, at the end of the post, yes, they talked about the next Switch, the Switch 2, the Switch Pro, something when it comes to another Switch model. And yeah, you go figure. It blew up online, started trending all over Twitter, and I thought we would talk about that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, make sure you like it and subscribe if you're new to the Spawnwave channel. Let's head over here. This is over on Nintendo Everything, and it was being posted up all over the place because it's one of those situations where 4chan ends up being correct. And we've seen it happen, but really if you think about how many posts go up on 4chan versus how many are correct, it's still not very often necessarily, but sometimes they're dead on and somebody posts anonymously that has legitimate information, maybe within a company or in this case, a company working alongside of the Pokemon company and Nintendo. I think Pokemon Let's Go, that whole thing leaked out months in advance on 4chan, and it wasn't until obviously it was completely revealed that people went back and realized it. So this is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC leaker says new Switch coming alongside Indigo Disc. Now, this all comes back to this 4chan post here, and from what I understand, there were some people like Pokemon YouTubers who covered this, just kind of having fun with it, and then they went back and said, hey, look, it was correct, and then they realized at the bottom, oh, they're talking about new Switch hardware as well, and potentially a time frame for when it's going to release. In fact, we'll get a blown up look of it here. This is that 4chan post. They say, I am a programmer at a Pokemon outsourcing company. My English is very poor, so I use machine translation to complete this post. I think that's a very important thing to note, by the way. Using machine translation can do different things with sentence structure, and you can have nuance and meaning kind of get lost a bit. And we've seen this many times throughout the years. So at least keep that one in mind, and I'll even present an idea as to how this could have been somewhat skewed in translation. Anyway, a program at a Pokemon outsourcing company, I will say there is a lot of information in here for them to know, but I mean, clearly they had the information. So the theme of the DLC, Hidden Treasure of Area Zero and Hexagon, the version 1.2 includes dressable clothes as a reward for DLC purchasers, which I guess you could have guessed that, like, oh yeah, there's going to be some sort of like little cosmetic perk, which we've seen previously from Nintendo and even the Pokemon company for DLC. But it gets a bit more eyebrow raising when they start just going over all the names and the Paradox Pokemon, and you can see them all here. It's a lot to try to pronounce, but again, dead on with everything. Mystery Pokemon with a green mask, special terrestrial appearance. Third legendary Pokemon is a large blue turtle even. But it's the last sentence that's really got people talking, because sure, you could put all this stuff out there and people are like, oh, look, 4chan was correct. But it's the part that's not necessarily proven yet that's starting the conversation. Where they say we are working on a graphics enhancement patch for the new Nintendo Switch models that will be released alongside DLC 2. So DLC 2 is currently slated for winter. Nintendo, the Pokemon company there, they can be kind of loose with the time frame or the seasons. Technically winter, that starts midway through December and runs into 2024, but I feel like that DLC would more or less line up for the holiday, where they would try to once again have a big push for these Pokemon games, Scarlet and Violet. But would they have Switch models, not just one, but Switch models, new Switch models, ready to go for the holiday as well? Because I feel like a lot of us now are thinking, well, they'll probably have new hardware for 2024, as that would then be going into the 8th year if they decide to keep pushing it. And that does feel kind of long in the tooth for the Switch at that point, if it doesn't already. So I was figuring maybe by the end of this year, we hear about something from Nintendo when it comes to new hardware, and then we look towards the first half of 2024 and they reenact the Switch launch from 2017 with whatever's next, a newer, more powerful hybrid system, or they have some other weird and wacky Nintendo idea. But in this case, a graphics enhancement patch even would be introduced for this system. Okay, so first of all, I mentioned before, and I just want to present this as a possibility here. All right, I mentioned the machine translation that was said in like the second sentence because their English is very poor. So they're relying on Google Translate or DeepL or whatever to essentially reform a sentence from one language to the next. And looking at that last sentence that everyone's referring to, they're working on a graphics enhancement patch for the new Nintendo Switch models that will be released alongside DLC 2. I think it's possible that the patch is what's being referred to here as releasing alongside DLC 2, and just that there are new Nintendo systems that are currently in the works. And yes, I think most of us understand that. We expect Nintendo to have something in the future outside of the current Switch platform, right? We expect a follow-up, something for their next generation device. So when you kind of break up the sentence that way, sure, it's not as, I guess, exciting because it's not necessarily saying, yes, there will be a new Nintendo system for 2023. Rather, hey, a patch will come out this year. And to be honest, even that, a graphics enhancement patch from the Pokemon company, yeah, it's kind of hard to believe too. I mean, look, we saw 1.2 come out. Didn't really do a lot to fix the issues with the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but hey, one way for them to fix it, the big patch, is you buy the next system and it just kind of brute forces its way to 1080p and hopefully 30 frames per second. That's kind of where we are with Game Freak and the Pokemon company with these titles. Selling well, but unfortunately they don't run very well. Okay, so the possibility of a Switch system, and the reason this post clearly is being looked at so much is because of all of the correct information that would be incredibly difficult to guess out of thin air. Now, it is also possible that this person had that information. This happens from time to time where they have a lot of good info and they just kind of throw something in at the end. Like, hey, you know what? Switch systems, they're coming, right? They don't have any actual knowledge of it, but because they have so much good information, it's enough to convince people that that information is also good, right? So I still think 2024 is when we see Nintendo make the move. I believe we could see the new systems at least introduced or mentioned or even shown this year towards the end, kind of like what they did with the Switch, although they weren't exactly concerned about the Wii U's holiday because that system was done, right? They're on to the next thing at that point. Whereas the current Switch, they still want to have a good holiday for 2023 this year, right? You at least assume they would, even though their current lineup for the second half doesn't really scream that they're pushing hard. They still have time to unveil more stuff, and it's possible Metroid Prime 4 is even there. So that's the thing that kind of hangs me up here is, would they be prepared to start talking about their next generation device ahead of the holiday that they may try to do some at least decent numbers for with, yes, an aging platform, but I don't know. It is a very compelling 4chan post here that a lot of people, again, are paying attention to. So let me know your thoughts on this one down below. I'm very curious as to the idea of new Switch models, maybe more than one, and even a graphics enhancement patch for Pokemon. Which one is harder to believe for 2023? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.